Hey, everybody, welcome to Wealth Wednesday. I am your host, Dr. Kathleen Walls, and I am here with none other than financial therapist and money manager himself, Brian Brogan. How you doing, Brian?
Excellent. How you doing, Dr. Kathy?
I am doing great, thank you. It's wonderful to see you.
It's good to be
You know,
seen.
the hard part about doing this once a month is that I know that another month has passed, so I can't.
This one went pretty quick, didn't it?
It, which is amazing to me because we had 31 days and
Yeah.
yet and still here we are at the 3rd of April. So
And I
happy
think I
spring.
think all 30 of those, I think maybe 29 were all rainy days, to be honest
You,
with you.
uh,
So for Easter, Easter was a nice day here in Philadelphia.
and I can't believe it's raining again.
I
So
know.
yeah, but you know what? Maybe
The
it's
spirits
raining
are up.
money. This
That's
is
right.
right. That's right. And if money grew on trees, we'd all want it to rain more often. So let's
That's it.
go with we're going to be happy about this
That's it.
rain. All right. So it is spring since we've last met. We've crossed over into a new season. So happy spring to you and everyone who's listening. And this is what led us to this topic of spring, financial spring cleaning.
That's right.
All right. And for those who are joining us for the first time, we always encourage you have your pen and paper ready because there are going to be some notes. And yes, even I, as host, am here to take notes as well because this is all a learning opportunity. So, good afternoon, everyone who is chiming in. And Brian, let's talk about it. Why did we choose this spring cleaning, financial spring cleaning, as our topic today? And what do we want to make sure we cover?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there is a method to our madness, right?
Yes.
Which is, we're trying to talk one about assessment of and awareness, financial awareness, emotional awareness of who you are, what's your temperament, what's your
Hmm.
personality, and that really led us to talk about some great work done from Hugh Macy out of Financial DNA down in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Financial DNA. And there's a few different what they call psychometrics. These are really personality risk assessment profiles that people do to really understand. Because Dr. Kathy, something happens with people. They'll say
Hmm.
one thing, but actually behave a different way.
Come on. Yes. Yes.
Um, and it's not necessarily their fault, right? I think people get
Hmm.
caught up in trying to want to be like other people or be
Hmm.
like the crowd.
Yes.
Um, and a lot of influences we have are just, for example, over Easter dinner or over a backyard barbecue,
Hmm.
where you'll hear somebody having, maybe they're bragging about their investments in Bitcoin or something. You're like, wow,
Hmm.
and you might get nudged to say, hey, why don't you have Bitcoin or something,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
something, and then people say, well, I need to have that. Right. So I have clients come to me and say, oh, I need to have this, this, and this. And I go, hold on for a second. Those are very risky instruments.
Yes.
Does that match your financial situation that you can take that risk?
Yeah.
And more importantly, as you know, that I am a strong believer, does it match your financial personality? That risk,
Hmm.
what they call your risk metric,
Hmm.
psychometric risk profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the method is one, doing an assessment. So working with a financial therapist or somebody who has the ability to bring in that qualitative part is really important.
Hmm.
I mean, and so it's all about assessment, who you are, what you're doing, and how you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Because as you and I talked about, you and I both have a very strong background in psychology, and we believe that your unconscious biases, maybe your parts of your personality that you don't know, or patterns of behavior that might not be conscious to you. These
Hmm.
are these are kind of things that set people into patterns.
Yes.
And I always say, it's kind of like the old Dr. Phil. Now, how's that working out for you?
That's right.
Right? That's the litmus test. Now, how's that working out for you? Well,
Exactly.
I'm in debt up to my eyeballs, and the man just repoed my car.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
that doesn't sound like it's working out for you.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
I think a lot of us, as we've grown up, just now, I think states are passing legislation for financial literacy,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
fantastic because I believe
Yes.
we just got done the month of financial literacy. I think that was March. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, and so, what's amazing about that is really understanding who you are, what's your personality, and what are those unconscious hindrances. We call them
That's
heuristics.
right.
Rules of thumb that are incorrect, that you're
That's
making
right.
assumptions. You're making
That's right.
assumptions. And we know something happens unconsciously with assumptions. You actually have expectations, and those expectations you create as self-fulfilling prophecies.
Baby.
But your
Baby. I
self-fulfilling
think we got to,
prophecy, it's based off a
we,
wrong thing.
yeah, we got to roll that one back because I know people, we use the word assumptions and we don't break it down with the fact that, right, there is an expectation attached to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're assuming that if you behave a certain way, it's going to lead to a certain outcome. Now, as you mentioned, many times it's faulty because there are also these unconscious behaviors and thoughts that we've adopted along the way that we've learned from parents, we've learned from friends, and now this powerful influence called social media,
Yeah,
we've learned from. And we think certain things, if we do this, it's going to lead to that. But we have to take that honest inventory and look at how these behaviors are really working for us. Are they leading us to the outcomes that we desire? Or do we need to clean up and change some of these beliefs? Hence, the importance of doing this financial spring cleaning.
that's right. I had the great privilege of being an adjunct professor at St. Joe's University, and one of the courses this semester is on entrepreneurship and new ventures.
Mm-hmm.
So we're introducing books like, Think and Grow Rich, and the E Myth, and
Mm-hmm.
Cash Flow Quadrant, and all these fun books.
Yeah.
Really about understanding what is an entrepreneur, what is a
Mm-hmm.
manager, what is the technician.
Yeah.
And part of that work of entrepreneurship and what makes a great entrepreneur is somebody can have a vision of the future and
Mm-hmm.
bring it into present reality.
Yes.
Right. Well, that's called financial planning.
Come on.
Right. Is when you
100%.
see your future self. I always talk
Yes.
about your future self, and having a level of care and discipline and self-worth and self-esteem that you care enough about yourself in the future that you make some hard decisions, or maybe make some difficult decisions about your finances today.
That's right. Some new choices. And I feel like as you're saying that, people are going, oh, right, that makes sense, right? That you care about yourself enough. Because so many times we'll do things for other people that we won't do for ourselves.
That's
And
right.
so it's a way for us to externalize the present self and put ourselves into the future and go, how do I plan for my well being?
Yeah.
Right. So
That's
during this spring cleaning process, you're taking honest inventory of your spending behaviors,
mm-hmm.
and receipts are inventory of past behaviors.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Or old sweatshirts that just we can't get rid of.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And we get a chance to look at our patterns. One of the things that I say, it's April, right? So it's tax time.
Yeah.
I don't like tax time and I do like tax time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like tax time because I have to take extra time to focus on my finances, my past spending, put
Mm-hmm.
receipts in order and so forth. Now, the reality is I do that throughout the year, and I had to train myself to do that throughout the year, because if not, then I'm dealing with a crunch time and I'm
It's
dealing with,
overwhelming. It's
it is
overwhelming.
extremely overwhelming.
That's right.
And then I'm also a multipreneur. I have several businesses. So it really becomes very overwhelming. So I had to learn how to pace myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like tax time because I get a chance to see where I've been spending. I get a chance to see the trends and the patterns, and it creates a predictability moving forward as
Mm-hmm.
well. So if
Mm-hmm.
numbers are off, it's like, why did I all of a sudden spend so much in this one space?
Mm-hmm.
Or why was there a decrease
Yeah.
in this other space?
Yeah. And just like, you had to defend your doctorate thesis, you'll have to defend your buying behavior. You have to
Yes.
defend it. Right. And it's always more powerful if you do it with an accountant or a professional or, a loved one that is, has an acumen in this area.
That's a real feeling. It's so funny because I was talking with someone the other day about that, and the person wanted to help them with their taxes. And it was just this cringiness of letting someone
Yeah.
into your
Your
finances and the
private world.
vulnerability. Yes, your private world, the
Yeah.
vulnerability that you experience, the level of transparency,
Yeah.
and as you just mentioned, right, the level of accountability, right?
Hmm.
The true self awareness of your spending. And are you willing to basically stand before a council and say,
Hmm.
this is my spending behavior
Hmm.
and I'm proud of it?
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that because it reminded me of kind of something I've always said of us living on the East Coast, right, in the Mid
Mm-hmm.
Atlantic region. I had this theory that because we were more like a Puritan society many years ago, that
Mm-hmm.
we still carry this kind of
Hmm.
uh, European kind of shame and guilt around money because money
Interesting.
still carries a taboo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about politics and sex and money. They're all kind of taboo, right?
Mm-hmm.
We still have that kind of guilt and shame if we've made a mistake or done something not proper with money. And that's hard to disclose to another person.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Mm-hmm.
I work with people, I basically say, hey, listen, I've seen it all. I've done it all. I've made the
Mm-hmm.
mistakes that you've made. I've done
Mm-hmm.
some really embarrassing things with money, and I've done some incredible things with money.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good part of the discovery process to ask those questions. What is the best
Yeah.
thing you ever did with money? And
Great question.
what is the one thing that you're not proud of, right? And
Mm.
just that cathartic, exercise of being able to say that and get it out is very, very powerful. It's empowering,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what
Yeah.
this is all about. It's about, like you said, taking a clean, honest, sobering look at your
Mm-hmm.
situation. Because unless you analyze where you are, you're never going to know where to go and how to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. That is
Right.
so true.
Yeah.
So
And
true.
it's about, I mean, if your unconscious biases are set like a car that just turns left all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a NASCAR,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's just,
Yeah.
that's going to just put you in circles,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So it's really about saying, oh wow, okay, my car can go right, it can go straight, and go reverse. I have
Mm-hmm.
other options. I don't have to be, burdened or set to this way of rhythm, this cadence of
Yeah.
behavior around my finances.
Well, I love that you say that, so it's very much like a GPS, right?
Absolutely.
You have to take inventory. Where are you? And
Yeah.
are you headed in the right direction, or do you need to do the infamous
Yeah.
rerouting, right?
Reroute.
And put yourself in a new direction. And when
Yeah.
you have someone such as yourself, a financial advisor, or so forth, then you are able to course correct. And many of us have to do that because, to your point earlier, so many of us have not been able to participate in a financial literacy program.
That's right.
So
That's
we were not set up for financial success. We were actually, many schools led us to get a job to further someone else's mission and vision and
that's right.
so forth. And we were also taught that they will take care of our finances, meaning they'll give you a paycheck, they'll take out the taxes. You don't have to be responsible for those things. So when
Mhm.
someone becomes an entrepreneur, you're now saying, not only am I capable of managing my time effectively, but I'm also capable of managing my finances effectively.
That's right. That's right.
However, it is important, whether you're working for yourself or working for someone else, that you are taking inventory of your finances, which last month you encouraged people to take 90 days to just look at your spending habits, not make any adjustments,
Mhm.
but take inventory of it so that therefore you would have an understanding of where you currently are, and then be able to do what a gap analysis is, right? Look at where you are, look at where you want to be, and then start to create the action plans after you have the information, though.
That's right. Yeah. And, talking about entrepreneurship and talking about sole proprietorship, part of the coursework that we teach is around Robert Kiyosaki's book, A Cash Flow Quadrant, where he talks about, the employee, the self-employed,
Hmm. Yeah.
the business owner and the investor. And
Yeah.
there's really a quadrant, that, tax code is written specifically for business owners and investors. They have a different tax rate.
Hmm.
So that's part of it too, is understanding, and taking responsibility that, and this goes back to, I think it was 1972 where ERISA came out with the 401ks and the savings plans, because we were moving away from, little history lesson, we moved away from defined benefits plans, which were the old pensions, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were defined benefits. This was a benefit for you working at the company and giving 20, 30 years of service. It was a defined amount of money that you would get in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of what you were talking about. What Robert Kiyosaki talks about is basically that's the industrial age kind of retirement plan where the company
Mm-hmm.
took care of you, like our
Yes.
grandparents and some of
Yeah.
our parents actually had that. And the government kind of acts in that role for their employees. And that moved to defined contribution plan, which put the onus on the individual for their retirement. So no one's going to come and take care of you. There is Social Security, but that's really a supplement. It's not made to be your main source of income in retirement. Right. Unfortunately, a lot of people have right now. So defined contribution is the 403B, the 401k, the traditional IRA, the Roth IRA, simple plans, simple IRAs, and as such. So the onus is on us to actually put away money pre-tax or get a tax deduction for it, depending on how you're doing it. So we can save for our own retirement. So that's what he calls the information age kind of retirement plan. And so it's really on us to really, know more about our personal finances because we're responsible for our retirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
And that might be a shock to some people who's listening that, we are responsible for our own retirement. And that's very difficult today now because inflation is at an all-time high for the past 20, 30 years and or just coming off the peak, if you will. And we have supply chain issues. We have, cost of living, housing and rents are very high. So these things are making it more difficult, but it even gives more of a case why we should be paying attention to these things.
And and again, as we're talking about this spring cleaning, so when we think about the metaphor of spring cleaning, it is doing that deep dive. It is getting rid of stuff that you don't need anymore. It is changing your clothes for the season, depending on where you live, right? But it's getting all of those cobwebs out of the way.
That's
And
right.
this is what we're talking about right now. The cobwebs show up in our mindsets, right? The cobwebs show up in our current beliefs. The cobwebs show up in our behaviors. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes, like if you think about a cobweb, I'm looking up in the ceiling because at a certain point in the day, you don't even notice it. And
Right.
then the light hits it a certain way, and all of a sudden, there it is.
Yeah.
Or you walk into a room and it's now on your face, and you're like, I didn't even see that, right? This is the same thing that happens with our spending. We have certain behaviors that we don't realize we have. We have certain spending habits we don't realize we have. And we need someone to shine the light on it or a certain situation to come to pass for us now to become aware.
Yeah. And so our first step was kind of the financial DNA. The second step is, looking into software that can help us, which is still fantastic. We talked about, David Ramsey's every dollar budget, but, I think Rocket Mortgage has one. There's a lot of these different apps. So we're not really, tied to one. I'm just familiar with a couple of them.
Yeah.
And what's nice about that is that those 90 days is when you link a software reporting feedback mechanism, because that's really what it is. We all wear, some of us wear like the iWatch or the Fitbit, and we do that for what? The feedback, the biofeedback.
Yeah.
And so these software programs, let's just, for example, Every Dollar, that's a program that basically links up with your account. It's not going to have any ACH ability where it's going to take money out of your account. That is a real fear for some people. But it's just a verification data. It's not able to go in and take your monies. So it goes into your account. It takes a picture and brings those transactions over. And then you code each and every transaction. Budgets fail. Spending plans fail because you have too many categories. What's really made, kind of the program of David Ramsey or any other is just having a finite amount of categories. So you have housing, you have utilities, you have savings, you have recreation, you have utilities and transportation. So once you have these categories, which are 10 or 11 categories mostly for people, then you start putting in your transactions and coding those transactions, right?
Yep.
We just did this this past Monday with a client, and they were like, "Well, what about this $300 cash I took out?"
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "Well, there you go. Cash is a budget killer because you're
Mm-hmm.
not accounting for where all those dollars go, and that's
Come on.
$300 that you had to account for.
Yes.
Give 20 to your nephew and give 20 for gas, and did you get,
Yep.
you know?" So there are budget killers. So let's just talk about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Target, Walmart, Costco, my favorite BJ's, right? So like these places you walk in, and the reason why they're budget killers is because traditionally you would go to your local sports store and buy a soccer ball for your kids, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you know that was for a soccer ball.
That's
Then
right.
you go get some stationery at the Staples, right? Because for school supplies.
Yes.
And then you need some groceries at the grocery store. So there's three
Mm-hmm.
different transactions, but you know from the place you bought them what they are.
Yes.
You go into Target for some milk, and you end up coming out $300 later, and you
Come
don't
on.
know what you just bought.
Exactly.
Now, Target, what if I told you that Target, Costco, Walmart, all the big box stores, they can actually itemize that transaction on your Target credit card or on your receipt. They
Mm-hmm.
do not do that because
Really?
they want you. In my belief,
Yes.
they know you're going to overspend,
Mm-hmm.
and they're counting on you overspending so they can make their earnings in 90
Yes.
days.
Yes.
Okay? So they want you to have those impulse buys. They want you to be able to not follow your budget for
Yeah.
that particular item, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because the other day we went to one store, and you know how they have the lines weaving around, and there's all types of merchandise
Oh yeah,
along the way, right? And
it's a cattle
I'm
shoot.
watching. Say it again. Say
It's
it
a
again.
cattle shoot.
Oh my goodness.
It's a
Yes.
cattle shoot. I mean, yeah,
Yes. And I'm watching the people and the
leading you to
children,
slaughter.
and they're going back and they're grabbing and they're smelling and they're looking at prices and they're putting it in their cart. And I'm just like, don't you succumb to any of this, right?
It's
Right.
I mean, you're walking into it when you're
That's
walking
right.
into it. You're like, here we go. Here's the car. It's like going to Hershey Park. You always end up in the store at the end of the ride, right?
That's right. That's
They
right.
do that on purpose.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. But Leslie said, I noted to remember about budget killers.
Yeah.
That's right.
So cash traditionally should be used for gas and food because they're perishables, right? They get
Okay.
burnt up. But
Yeah.
I'm at a point now in my advice where I tell people run everything through your debit card because your
Yes.
debit card can be linked to these things, and then you get the transactions.
Yeah.
You can use
Yeah.
credit cards, but that's for more advanced savings.
Yeah.
So when you're just starting off, I know people love to get their points from your airlines or Costco points or whatever it may be. You need to put that on hold for now because they're budget
Mm.
killers. And
Wow.
that's when you build the muscle up, then you can use it. You earn the right to use those
Yeah.
because they hire PhD doctors just like yourself at the credit card companies to see how can they get people to buy those points
Yeah.
and use those credit cards, because eventually what happens is that you overspend and you
Mhm.
carry the balance.
Mm. You know, Brian, I'm so glad that you said that because it is a muscle, right?
Mhm.
Self discipline, self
Mhm.
control, self awareness, all of these things, delaying gratification,
Yeah,
all of these things
it's a
are
work ethic.
muscles.
It's a
It is
work.
a work ethic. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah,
It is. And it becomes part of financial planning.
yeah,
And so your financial awareness of your behaviors, and we have to understand that we are breaking through sometimes generational patterns,
absolutely.
right? If we
That's,
haven't been taught, we've watched our
yep.
families the way that they spend, which is why we did. If people missed the first episode back in February, where we talk about your financial DNA, your financial personality, and on my Ask Dr. Wall's 525 page, there are links to resources in the write up.
Yep.
So
Please
I
use them.
encourage
Please
you
use
to definitely use them. Um, but we have to recognize these pieces. You know, people are putting in the chat room, you know, here comes those budget killers. We do have these budget killers, and we don't take them into consideration. And that's why I do very much like the David Ramsey every dollar. I'm waiting to hear back from them to see if there's some sort of affiliate link or program that we can
Sure. Yeah.
establish with them. But for people who do want to check it out, you can do a quick Google search. I did not link my bank account because I too am hesitant
Yep.
about all of a sudden somebody pulling out of it. So you were able to enter things manually. And
Yep.
I just wanted to get a taste of it to
Hmm.
see how good it was. And I have to say, I was very impressed with it. And I did like the fact that it showed me where my money was going
Hmm.
and then how much I had left over per month and
Hmm.
then where that money could go to. So I definitely felt like it was a tool that was teaching me, increasing my awareness, and training me to start telling the money where to go,
That's exactly
allocating
right.
it.
That's exactly right. And in this process of the 90 days of monitoring your behavior, I often say to individuals and families that remember, because it could be a multi-generational curse that you're breaking, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
poverty or lack of financial awareness, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of like a groove of a tire, when you
Mm-hmm.
get stuck in the mud. It's the momentum. You need a lot of momentum to get out of that pattern, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you
And
do.
when you do that, which is doing positive financial planning, you're
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to your spending. You're not thinking negative thoughts around your spending. You're encouraging yourself, and you're staying on focus, just like you would at any new venture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's important that when that happens, to watch. I always tell my clients, watch out. You're going to get a signal from the universe that you're on par, because you're going to get a big bill,
Yes.
because a positive has to be met with a negative in the universe.
Mm.
There's no vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost like a vibration that wants to keep you in that rut.
Yes.
So
Yes.
as soon as you make a positive move, it's going to say, hey, no, we want to pull you back into where your pattern
Mm-hmm.
is. And so I have
Mm-hmm.
time and time over 30 years have a client say, yep, I got a flat tire. I'm like, that's great. And even preparing them for that
Yes.
is positive, because they see it as it was a beautiful thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
important.
yeah. And so, when we talk about the steps here, it's really, that personal financial DNA, then monitoring your behavior for 90 days, right? And getting that dialed in. I call that calibration, like dialing
Mm-hmm.
and getting that gap tighter and tighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then really it's about risk assessment, right? So really it's about, do you have the proper amount of insurance? Do you have do you have a will? Do you have a trust set up? Do you need a
Mm-hmm.
trust?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the first step in all financial planning is to plug the holes, right? I
Yes.
just came from a meeting and told these individuals that when you take on a project, it's just like taking on a fixer upper of a house. The first thing you
Mm-hmm.
do is address the roof and the basement.
Yes.
So first things you do as a contractor, you want to make sure there's no dampness and water coming in from the basement and the roof, and that way you can work with everything else in the dry
That's
environment,
right.
right?
That's right.
So that's the same thing that you would do with your life, is check for the risk. Where are you exposed? Because you can
Mm-hmm.
be, 6 months down in financial planning and leave yourself exposed
Yeah.
uh, to some risk. So
Yeah.
let's talk about risk real quick. There's 4 things you can do with risk.
Okay.
Okay. You can avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
You can avoid risk. But what does that look like? Well, if I don't want to be in a car accident, I won't get in a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not practical for a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and for now that we know that our retirement is on our shoulders, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we have to put money at work. We have to put money at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, employees and self-employed people don't like the word risk. They
Right.
like the word safety.
That's right.
So for business owners and investors, they understand the word risk is not a bad word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? It's all about whether it's measured risk or not measured risk.
Mm.
Okay. If it's an
Mm-hmm.
appropriate risk to take for risk reward ratio, or
Yes.
if it's just flat out risk.
Yeah.
Business owners, investors, wealthy individuals do not take out flat out risk. They just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So retained risk, so you can avoid it. The second one is you can retain it.
Mm-hmm.
That means that you absorb the hit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our laws don't let us drive around without car insurance, but some people do. We know that, right?
Yeah.
So they're saying, okay, I'm going to absorb the hit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wealthy individuals do this sometimes and say, I don't need insurance because I can self-insure. I have enough money in a kitty, in a surety bond, that if need be, it would trigger that. Okay, so that avoid it, you can retain it. You can, but most people do the other two things, which they reduce the risk, which is mitigate it, lower the risk, level of exposure to it. So back to the car. Okay, I had to be in the car, but I can reduce my risk by being in a Volvo, seatbelt with airbags.
Right.
Right.
And driving the speed limit.
But they traditionally had the advertisement of, safety when you think of this, right? So now a lot of the cars are very safe. So you can reduce it by wearing your seatbelts. So you're reducing risk. And then the other part is transferring risk. You can transfer risk to the group. You don't have to take it on individually. And this is where at work you have your group life insurance policies, your group health insurance policies, your group car insurance. These are all spreading risk around, right? So that you're doing it as a collective. And that's a great way to do it because it's lowering your premiums, it's lowering the expense. And even insurance companies get together with our insurance companies and share the risk of what they're doing. That's called reinsurance. Right? So you just follow their lead. So we have avoid risk, retain it, reduce it, and transfer it. Right. And most of us will transfer, will buy insurance. So you want to make sure that you have car insurance that's at the appropriate level. In Pennsylvania, we're only required to have 15,000 to 30,000 overinsured, underinsured, bodily harm. That should be a lot higher. As high as you can afford. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that means if people get hurt, there's going to be money for the hospital bills.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you said that because a lot of times people will get insurance and they'll just leave it and don't go back and check in. And I would say that's one thing I am thankful. I've had very good insurance people, and they reach out to me once or twice a year, tell me what my status is, tell me where I could make some changes that would be better for my lifestyle at this point in time, because your needs change over time. And letting me know, of course, what additional items are available that may not have been available before. So again, this is all part of that spring cleaning, is that you're staying aware of what it is that you need at this point in your life. You're dusting off things. You're dusting off mindset, dusting off awareness, and dusting off the sleep. Right? Because we've been in hibernation. Winter is about hibernation and restoration, and we move into hibernation with our finances. And it's important. There was the infamous song, I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. And it becomes important that we do that so that we stay abreast of what it is that we need right now.
You and I are simpatico. I just got done saying that this morning.
Did you?
I can't believe it. So we're on the same wavelength. So let's talk. So I just wanted to address that. So your financial personality, your budget tools, and then addressing risk. That's kind of like 1, 2, 3 of really good planning, in my opinion. And everybody does it a little bit different. And then, so you and I want to talk about some tools that we can recommend to people as far as organization and getting their paperwork in the proper area. I'm happy to report there's a new company called Knockbox, Nokbox. I used to recommend the Susie Orman Ultimate Portfolio Protection Portfolio, which was this great thing you bought from QVC or directly from her. I used to buy them for clients and had it, but mine's kind of all tethered and broken up. So after many, many years, 20 years of using it, so I'm looking for another one, and we found Knockbox, which is a really great service. To basically put all of your financial life in one place, a accordion folder, if you will. And the problem is that most of us don't know what to put in there. This comes labeled with everything that you should have in your financial life, which is excellent.
It's so important.
And so, we talk about where do you put your Social Security statement? Where do you put your credit card information? Where do you put your licenses, birth certificate, marriage certificate, and your passports, right? Where do you put your life insurance term policy, your long-term care policy? Where do you have copies? Why is this important? It's important because Susie Orman had a great statement. She said, the greatest act of love that anybody can do for another human being is set them up financially when they die.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean what we think as far as money. It says that when if you lose somebody very close to you, you're suffering from grief and bereavement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add the stress on of trying to find out where's the homeowner's policy, where's the trust, where's the deed, where's all these things.
Everything.
And the greatest act that you can give anybody of your loved ones is to have that all set for them in one little place.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that statement because, unfortunately, as you know, I had some tragedy in my life with my stepfather and my mother passing unexpectedly. And that was something we had. We knew exactly where all the documents were, and that's an incredible gift that you can give somebody.
It is the absolute truth. And for people who are in the chat room on the YouTube side of life, there is I put a link in there for the Knockbox affiliate code that we have. It is also available on the write-up when you come over to YouTube, Ask Dr. Walls 525. You can click on that link there as well, but it's also in the chat room. Yes, 100% the importance of getting those finances in order because, as you know, when my father made his transition a few years ago, you're welcome. As my father made his transition a few years ago, I took the lead on getting things in order. I did have assistance with one of my siblings, but it was a deep dive. And then because my mother was not in the position to handle that, there were a lot of things that needed to be taken care of. And we didn't know everything, right? So then it became a waiting game for things to show up in the mail and then have to deal with it. And it would have been, and mind you, he had some things in order. I'm not going to say it was scattered all over the place.
Sure.
But there were a lot of unknowns. And then even 2 years later, things are showing up in the mail where it was just like, are you kidding me? There's something else that you have to do with. And you're exactly right. You're dealing with stress. You're dealing with loss. You're dealing with grief. You're dealing with the management of that in addition to whatever else is managing. As I said, I'm a person that has multiple businesses. So I still have to keep that running. I am the primary caretaker for my mother, so I'm keeping that running. I am married, so I'm keeping that running. I have mentees, I'm keeping that running. And I'm managing all of that. And I know some of y'all are like, whoo, child, right?
That's a lot.
And it is a lot, and that's still not everything, right? And so for someone to take the time to put this in order for the next person, it is a gift.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a gift. And as I keep things organized for whenever the day is that I make my transition, for those who will be the ones to take care of it, I do keep that in mind that they say she is organized, right? And I know she has this set aside to make our lives easier so we don't have to go through what she went through.
That's right. Yeah, and what's nice about it too is that it will, just by going through that discovery of this binder, you'll say, okay, I should have this in there. Okay, let me go find it. Right, so it prompts a natural progression of tasks for you.
Yeah.
I'm at that lovely stage where I have children that are going off to college. And so that's another thing of spring cleaning, right? Is getting your young adult ready to be launched, if you will. And so maybe in a future program, we'll talk about launching, your children, whether you're getting them hooked up with a credit card. If they're going to college, you need to have, if you need to have them at college, you need to have them have a power of attorney because a lot of universities will not, because they're adults at 18, they won't share information. So there's a kind of a checklist that we can put together for that also. So everybody's stage of life will be different, right? But at every stage, there's a checklist for you to prepare and optimize for your financial life in the best way going forward. Because we need to, plan for unexpected things. We have to know what our heartbeat is, our financial heartbeat, which is what I call your financial baseline, which is that's why you do that monitoring and get that feedback on the budget part. because you start to really ask questions about, okay, well, how do I account for this?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do for this? And those are the questions. And so it's everybody's situation is a little bit unique and different and customized,
Mm-hmm.
but there are generalities and checklists and kind of health checks that you can follow that keep you on point.
Yeah. And I want to go back into the knockbox piece.
Yeah.
So, right, I am someone who is highly organized. I've been that way. And I get it honestly from both sides. As we talked about financial DNA,
Yeah.
I get it from both sides. I didn't know that I did because it definitely skipped my father in a lot of ways. Right. But his grandmother, I recently, in the process of cleaning and clearing things out, I came across a lockbox of my great grandmother, his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And she had all of her bills, water bills, and gas bills, and so forth, that are dated 1900,
Mm-hmm.
1906. They're all organized in these little envelopes. And I'm just like, oh my
You
goodness.
can't get over the prices. They were like $5.
Right.
We're
Yeah,
like,
they were exactly $5, $9. Right. And so it was just like, whoa. And the first thing that went through my mind was she had no idea that over 100 years later,
yep,
that I would
yep,
appreciate her organization. Right. And so I can learn so much about that, right? And so much about her from the way in which she kept things in order. And
mm-hmm.
then my mother is highly organized, which made it easier to find a lot of my father's stuff because she took care of that. Now, Knockbox, as I looked at it, I initially was thinking, well, I'm very organized. I have my files. I know this, I know that. But they had more categories
Mm-hmm.
and things that I hadn't taken into consideration. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And then one of their products, I believe, is like a fire safety
Mm-hmm.
box because I recently talked to someone about a week or so ago who unfortunately lost everything within a
All right.
fire.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it is important to have that safe or that lockbox, that fireproof, waterproof. I've dealt with flooding
Yeah,
before and
that's right.
things getting heirlooms and documents getting
Yeah, I'd
lost.
mentioned to you that I have clients that have 3 of them, all duplicates in different houses,
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Yeah,
It mentioned that. Go ahead, because that
yeah,
is important too.
yeah. I mean that's just it. This is really about just being on top of your financial life and being organized and filling the gaps, right? And knowing what you need to have in a proper setting for your financial life.
Yeah.
The other part too we want to mention is a service called Storyworth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of clients, that I work with multifamily generational wealth, um, there are very unique and customized services out there for families of means to hire kind of a production crew to come in and tell their family story. And I think that's really neat. And I've participated in those in the past. But this is for everybody. This is for a family that if you have an elder parent or a grandparent, that they are the story keeper of the family, and they know all the names and dates and people. This great service sends out. It's like they'll send out 2 questions or 3 questions a month, and when they get that questions back, it generates more questions for that individual, and then over a 12-month period, it creates like a book. It creates a story of your family narrative. And I think when you talk about generational curses, like we probably can't get into it today, but some of the work that I've done with multi-generational families and people that are interested in breaking generational curses, it's a real thing, actually, in my belief. Because I had to address that in my family also, which is you look at your family history and what they call your genogram in psychology, right?
Yes.
Your genogram is really your family tree.
Yes.
And part of this work that we do, and this is available to anybody, is to really be like Columbo and find out the different financial personalities of your family.
Yeah.
And again, it's either working for you or you've probably picked up some, generational stuff that just isn't working for you.
That's right.
Right.
And it may have been functional at the time
There you
and it
go.
is now dysfunctional, or it may have been dysfunctional the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or it might have been caused by a crisis.
Yes.
So I
No
tell a
cause.
great story about my Irish aunts that came over from Ireland. They
Mm-hmm.
were both widowed, and they lived in some buildings in White Plains, New York,
Mm-hmm.
Leona Helmsley buildings, I think,
Okay.
rent controlled, and they lived right across the street from each other. And when they both passed, they had a certain amount of money in 3 different banks, right
Mm.
up to the limit of the FDIC insurance.
Mm.
And they thought that was diversification, and in their eyes, it was diversification. But they
Mm-hmm.
were what? They were still in shock from the 1929 crash.
Yes.
So they had money in 3 different banks. And that was the
Yeah.
way that they were diversifying, because the FDIC insurance only went up to a certain amount
Mm-hmm.
before 2008.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. It might have made sense then.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to do this now,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And so, because in 1940, you could buy a car and have it paid off within 3 years.
Yeah.
You could pay off a house in 10 years.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, things have changed.
Big time. Big time.
And our behavior and how we think about things had to change. So, but knowing this,
So you mean putting money in a shoebox and hiding it is not, it's not going to multiply?
it's not going to multiply, not just overnight. That's exactly
Okay.
right. So, yeah, so these rules of thumb, they're called heuristics in behavioral finance. They're
Mhm.
either correct, like the rule of 72, or they're not correct, right? So it's either a formula that's time and tested and true,
Yeah.
right? Or it's not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's about unpacking those isms and those belief systems and rerouting them, because your
Yeah.
brain has basically formed a neural pathway to make that happen over and over. That's why
That's right.
pattern.
And I'm glad that you said that, because just quick, right? When we're talking about the brain, what happens is the more you do something, the deeper the groove becomes.
That's
So
it.
think about it like a pothole, right? And so the more somebody rides into that pothole, the deeper it
Or
becomes.
I like to say a muddy country
Oh
road.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have to work hard to get out of that pattern
Mhm.
and create a new pathway,
Yeah.
right? That's
That's it.
creating a new behavior. And just
And
because you slide into it doesn't mean you can't slide out of it, right?
that's
You just have to work a little harder. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly it. And we know that those first 21 days are going to be the hardest,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That's why the momentum of working with a coach is so key,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm at an age where I don't like working out physically,
Mhm.
okay? But I used to love it, okay? I used to love it, but I
That
need
and
to.
that
I
and
need,
pop locking and breakdancing. But go
that's it.
ahead.
I'm not
Right.
working. That's it. And so I used to love it. I used to be very athletic, but now it's like a chore for me. I still like it, but it's hard for me to get going. But I
Yeah.
need that coach, or if I know I have the obligation to meet the coach somewhere, that keeps me
Yeah.
going. So
Yeah.
to your point about the accountability,
Yeah.
you need an accountability partner.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And I'm
that's
glad that you said that. And this is definitely something for people to think about. Is there someone in your life that you trust enough that you're willing to be open and vulnerable enough to deem a financial accountability partner for yourself?
excellent. I love it.
Do you also need to hire someone? Because there are people such as Brian and other financial advisors that you do need to be able to say, this is what I'm doing. This is, I don't like it, right?
Yeah.
But I want to get somewhere else, but I don't even know where to start. I've had people with their homes, not that they're hoarders, but life has happened and their homes have gotten completely out of order.
Hmm.
And they're like, I don't know where to begin. Can you help me? And one of the first things is show me, right?
Hmm.
Show me what you got. And I also have a team of people who sometimes I send out, take a
Hmm.
look, because they're very skilled with organizing. And it's not about the judgment or the assumptions. We don't have those,
Yeah.
but people allow the judgment and the assumptions to get in the way of receiving the help.
And if it's a family member, to your point, they'll fall into that judgment and they'll start blaming each other. Well, why'd you do this? And
Right.
they feel they have the emotional capital to do so. And
Right, right. Mm. So
yeah.
yeah, so it's important when we're doing this financial spring cleaning, we got to look at all of this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to look at what our behaviors are. We also have to look at our feelings about it. We have to look at our assumptions about assumptions and
Mm-hmm.
judgments and what's getting in the way of us
Mm-hmm.
achieving the financial goals that we desire.
That's
So
it.
we're at the beginning of April. We have 8 more months. What is it that you would like to see by the time December
That's
comes?
a great question. I started my semester out this semester talking to the students and asked them one simple question, which is, what do you expect of yourself?
Mm,
What
mhm,
standard are you setting for yourself?
mhm.
Because you can't meet a standard unless you set it.
That's right.
You can't meet a goal unless you set it.
Come
So
on.
all of this has to do with setting a goal,
Yeah,
visualizing it, and then, shortening that gap to bringing it into your reality. And you bring it
yeah,
into reality by taking literally the baby steps. And that's why Dave Ramsey actually calls it baby steps,
yeah,
because it's very hard to take that first step.
yeah,
But I'm telling you, the universe will meet you. It's
yeah,
kind of like that Indiana Jones, movie that you and I talked about. When you put your foot down, the bridge will show up and support
yeah,
it. It's the
yeah.
same thing with your financial life and the universe. If you move in a positive way, it will meet you, and you will get that momentum. You will get that momentum
You
and move.
will. You will. And so
Um,
I put in the chat room, I put goalgetter101.com, which is my goal getter
Beautiful.
program. And we're currently on day 48 of
Mm-hmm.
our 100-day challenge.
Yeah.
And I provide
Love it.
a free goal tracker, and daily task tracker that people can go onto the site and download. I also do have a Goal Getter workbook for $19.99. It's a digital download. People can purchase that. But for that exact reason, right? Every goal is a series of small action steps.
Yeah.
And so we have to break those goals down. If not, we're just dealing with a wish and a dream. On the cover of my Goal Getter workbook is a genie's lamp. And here's the thing that I love about the genie's lamp: you still have to do something to activate the genie,
There you go.
right? You got to rub it.
That's it.
Yeah, it does. If not, it's just sitting there and you just sitting there.
That's
And so that's the whole thing with our goals. And financially, we have to take time to look at them. As I tell people all the time, it's literally just numbers.
yeah.
And if you are afraid of numbers, then you're not going to achieve your financial goals.
Yeah, it's funny. The classic, thing I taught my kids: how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's right.
And over the years, I've worked with clients where literally they wouldn't even open up their bills, right? So
Hmm.
you can get it on the extreme. And to
Yep.
your point, you're just showing them a process of bringing it in, organizing them, throwing the ones out, and then opening them, and then setting them up. You do all this before you even pay them. And I say you pay them on a different day.
Yes.
Right. So it's about just getting it set up so that it's not
Yep.
emotionally overwhelming just to look at them. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we meet people where they are. And I think
Hmm.
you're exactly right. Following your goal getter 101 is exactly what you should do.
Hmm.
Every day I print out a to-do list. And I think, and I'll just say this, I personally believe that, we're being conditioned through technology of our attention span
Oh my goodness.
um,
Yes.
to be almost like ADHD, all of us.
Hmm.
Even the frame rate on TVs used to be 45 seconds. They're down
Yes.
to 5-second frame rate,
Yes. Yes.
which means they'll change the frame every 5 seconds.
Hmm. Hmm.
Our brains aren't really hardwired to handle that. I'm here to
Hmm.
tell you. And so we get this anxiety. That's why anxiety, I think, is at an all-time high,
Come on.
right?
Yes.
Depression is following that because you
Hmm.
don't get a sense of purpose. If you're just constantly distracted, you don't
Hmm.
ask those questions. Who am I? Why am I
Right.
here?
Right.
And so I really think that following a goal setter, having a to-do list, and and you and I have said this to people, it's not about accomplishing everything on your to-do list, but maybe accomplishing 1, 2, or 3 things today is a win,
Exactly.
right? That
Exactly.
builds that momentum, right?
Yes.
And that's the key is being able to have blocking and tackling, seeing what you can go and hit, and having that accomplishment really does build self-esteem. It builds momentum and confidence that you can keep moving. And that's really the hack that we've been talking about for the past hour.
Yeah, and you know what, and I want to say this too, for those who do join our Goal Getter 101 community right now during the 100-day challenge, which happens to end on my birthday, um, I send out daily emails
Great.
with motivation, strategies, tips. And it's doing exactly what you were saying. It's counterintuitive to where society is right now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm asking you to slow down.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to be reflective. I'm
Yeah.
asking you to be purposeful and
Mm-hmm.
to work towards your goals as opposed to getting caught up in the distractions
I love that you said
of the
that.
world. Go ahead.
Because think about what we're doing here, right? We're getting people to do kind of remedial stuff that they may not want to do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's really try to sell this even further, which is and get them involved. You want to do this, in my opinion, because everybody talks about, law of attraction and manifesting billions of dollars, right? I believe in that, right? But I believe you had to do this kind of homework before you set up to do that,
Yeah,
right? How are you going to be able to visualize the world that you want if you don't know where your $20 is going,
that's right.
right? Because we have a rule here, don't we? Money goes where? Where does money go?
Where the energy flows, money
Yeah,
goes.
money goes
Yep.
towards, that's right, towards treated the best.
And
Yep. So money goes towards treat the best. So how are you going to jump right into manifesting this dream world of yours if you're not paying attention to your energy and where things are flowing in your life, right? Because you had to shore that up. It's all about shoring that up. It's about plugging the holes in the bucket, right? You can fill the bucket all you want, but if there's holes in it, it's not going to work out.
That's right.
So this is all about getting your life set up perfectly so that when you sit down and maybe the advanced calls we'll have in the future, we'll get into manifesting and vision boards and dreaming, because that's part of it. That's part of financial planning. It's what do you want in your next life, your next stage of your life, whatever's going on for you. Are you transitioning from one empty nesters, or your kids going to college, or you transitioning from a career, a marriage, a divorce, a death, whatever the transition may be in your life. So I think it's very important in order to really take advantage of manifesting and creating your life in full abundance. You need to be able to know what your situation is right now.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that I've said to my clients is your reality of today are the results of your thoughts of yesterday.
Your habits.
Right? Your habits, your thoughts, your behaviors, right? Your actions, all of that. And so if you want a different tomorrow and beyond, then you have to change what you're doing now. You cannot keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So
that's exactly right.
Taking that inventory is so important. Slowing down and tapping into self is so important. Writing these things out and looking at them, which is why I encourage people to have the pen and paper, because there's power in the written word. I know sometimes it is easier to do things on the computer. And I know with paper reduction and all of that, sometimes I even do type because I can type faster than I can write at times, but then I print it out and take a look at it, because there's just something about that tangible piece as opposed to it being in the ethers.
Well, part of the whole thing of achieving a goal is repetition.
Yes.
And so the more that you write it, speak it, think about it, focus on it, that's all repetitive. And whatever you focus on grows, right? So that's what you're putting your attention. You're putting your attention, your focus, and that will grow. And you're doing disciplined focus, right? It's disciplined focus. You're focusing on a specific thing, with a specific outcome.
Yes.
And a lot of us get worried about, well, I don't know how to do it, and that's why you listen to programs like this. But taking the steps, joining the Goal Getter 101, these are all things that will spark the next steps for you to show up.
Definitely. Definitely.
Very
All
good.
right. Well, we're at the hour, so people definitely be sure to subscribe to Ask Dr. Walls 525 over on the YouTube side. Be sure to look in the write-ups. There are links for you, such as the link to finding out about your financial DNA. That's on the first show. There's also the link. Here's the affiliate link for the Knock Box. There's also the link for the Goal Getter 101. And there is also the links for Brian. So, Brian, tell the people about yourself, how they can get a hold of you, and next steps.
Yeah, you have my email, Brian Brogan at exemplar-wealth.com. You can post that into the chat.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. People can find me. It's easy to find me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Deirdre. She says thanks to us both. She learns something new every time she joins in.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you for
Kathy.
joining. Great seeing you, Brian. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you. All
Take
right.
care
See you
now.
all. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day, everybody. Bye bye.